New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to New Thought Media Network. And I am your host for this show, which is Finding the Joy in the Journey. I am Rev Gina, and I am blessed to be part of this beautiful network. Not only the host of this show, but also on the prayer team that is here 8:15 a.m. and p.m. Mountain Time every day to know and hold truth. So welcome to Finding the Joy in the Journey. And this show is all about just that. It's not about waiting for it, hoping for it. It's knowing that it's there now. Joy is an inherent divine quality, which means that it is spirit. Spirit is always, it is unchangeable. And since there is only one, and we know that in that oneness, that's I am, and each one is, it is always available. It is a passion of mine as not just as a minister and as a life coach, but in my life is my purpose to help people find their way back to joy. It's always available, but sometimes there's so much stuff that happens in life, we get caught up in it. You know, we live in a society of bigger, better, faster, more, and what I call destination happiness. Well, when I achieve this, then I'll be happy. When I have the right job, when I have the right mate, when I have enough money in the bank and I've paid off all those bills, then I can be happy. But the truth is, it's always available. It's not about getting what I think I want. It's wanting what I have. So this show every week comes to you with different guests that have joy in their life. And I ask them, how do they get there? How do they live in that joy? What does it mean to them? So that we can find new ways, new modalities, different opportunities that may resonate to create and recognize more joy in your life. So today's guest is, I'm so thrilled to have. It is actually the creator and the visionary that created this network at this point, almost 3 years ago, that it has been an amazing gift to so many to uplift and share positive news. Rev Robert Brzezinski is a one-of-a-kind visionary. He's a mystic, teacher, mentor, creator, and explorer of the human condition. Rev Robert received his ministerial degree in 2011 and has studied New Thought for over 20 years. His wealth of practical experience in the world makes him uniquely qualified to serve the emerging vision of a world that works for all life. And we're going to ask him, what does that mean to him? Because that's the greatest first question. But it is my privilege to bring in Reverend Robert. Thank you for being here and spending some time with us today. And thank you for this platform to make it possible for any of us to be watching this day.
Thank you. Thank you, Gina. Thank you for the invitation. I am well aware that I could barge into this show any week I wanted to and sit down and make myself known. And it's a great pleasure to be invited to come share with you and your audience and dig a little bit deeper into what it is we are creating here. And truthfully, it is thanks to folks like yourself and our other show hosts and those that have kind of said, oh, I can see the vision of this wildly crazy guy that this one here, and have been willing to say, yes, how can I be a part of it? How can I support this? And how can we work together so that everybody is being lifted up? And just as the bio says, we can dig into that question right away if you want. We're creating a world that works better for all life, not just human life, but for all life on the planet.
So important. And I wanted to, we are live, so definitely any questions, comments, we want to hear from you. And this is Zoe, who is one of our practitioners on our prayer team and also has his own amazing show. And, a powerhouse duo. Thank you so much, Zoe.
Thank you, Zoe. Good to see you, brother. Great show today, by the way. I was watching.
So let's start with this network. It's almost 3 years, right? It's coming up on?
Just over 3 years, actually.
Just over, okay.
Yep.
I know my second anniversary passed this past month. So it's amazing. If time just flies. I've been on the network for 2 years and so much has happened. And it is just wonderful to be here. And Shay, thank you for being here. Good afternoon to you. Lifting up everyone. How beautiful. So how did it come about? Share with us how this vision and platform, how did New Thought Media Network, and for those that don't know, it also comes with, you also have the radio channel as well.
We have the radio channel as well, and I'll mention that, yes. I always love this question because it's going to take most of the rest of our time together to truly answer it all. But I'll do my best to keep it succinct, everyone. Really, when I look at this ministry was born, if you will, out of a need, out of a vision, and in many ways, out of a great disbelief. And so I'm going to start with the disbelief because my journey of ministry, those that know it, as we said in my bio, I originally licensed and graduated from ministerial school in 2011. Finally got my license in 2012. There's a whole story there we don't need to go into today. I'll tell it sometime. And have told it before. And through a couple of, let's call them false starts in ministry. Now, in ministry, a false start is at least a minimum of a year and sometimes as much as a few years. So my first false start was a 3-year experience, and the follow-up to that was only a year or so. And at that point, I kind of came away from ministry rather disillusioned. And in 2016, going into 2017, I was very disillusioned, and I was not active really, other than hanging out with a couple of buddies and saying yes to a talk here and there. And the absolute truth of it is I was supporting my family driving rideshare. And in driving rideshare, you spend a lot of time behind the windshield, and I was getting really tired of everything that was on the radio, and I wanted my own music back. And that led to a late night exploration across the internet, and ran into a platform that had at one point been providing internet radio opportunities for individuals. They had gone defunct. The business was out of business. And then here suddenly in the middle of February of 2018, here's this, wow, they're back. And that is a platform called Live 365. And I immediately started uploading New Thought music into that platform. I called it New Thought Radio. It bounced around on the internet. It is still available. It's on our website. And but I wasn't doing anything with it. It was just kind of sitting there, and it was my own little hobby, and it made it so I could turn it on in my car anytime I wanted. And but then that disillusionment, as I said, continued. And in January of 2020, I was on a phone call with my original first minister, my original first teacher in this philosophy. And he's a great guy, Reverend Donald Graves, big shout out. He put me on a 30-day visioning quest and said, I want you, I know how important this process is for you. I know how instrumental the visioning practice is in your life. I want you on a 30-day visioning quest, and you send me pictures of your notes every day. So I'm doing that through January. And what starts emerging is, in many ways, reminders of pieces of visions that had emerged through my ministerial education and things that had been a part of, and the radio station is absolutely one of those, that had always kind of been there. And so I came away from January 2020, and I'm in this visioning process. I'm like, yeah, okay, a network of ministers, and we're going to do video, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And I got to go get in the car and go drive and make some money to feed the family. Well, that's the vision part. So we have the
Can I just say, visioning, we don't realize sometimes, or not everyone realizes, that when we vision, we plant seeds. We literally are putting seeds into the universe, and they're growing. We don't necessarily go back and check on. We don't see it because it's not a visual necessarily. Sometimes it is, but it's one of those things. We are planting seeds. So you planted, every time you visioned, you planted seeds.
Yep. And so now here's where we get to the necessity. Because for those that are following along with the numbers, we're now into February of 2020, and the world is changing, and we have no clue what we're in for as a human race. We have no idea what we're about to experience. As the world, or at least as North America and the United States started to shut down, I had all this information that felt like this is the great need. And so on March 18th, I turned on StreamYard, the platform we still use today to do our video production, and I shared a prayer for humanity, for the world, live on Facebook. And there it is, Shay, exactly, seeing the seeds. And so in that, New Thought Media Network was born. I still didn't even have the name. I just jumped on and started praying. And then I realized, well, one isn't enough. If I'm going to do morning prayers, I should probably do evening prayers as well. And so we quickly added the evening prayers. And I'll share this. 8:15 is purely just a way to differentiate ourselves from anybody else. We didn't start at the top of the hour. We started at quarter after the hour, and that allowed me an extra 15 minutes of sleep each morning too. So I'm okay with that. But it started to take off, and people started to respond. And
you were the only one. You were the one praying. You and Lara, your wife.
Even for the first 3 months, it was completely me, not even Lara yet. So for March, April, May, it was all me. And not knowing where the pandemic was taking us, but having a lot of time at home, I started having a lot of conversations where I saw other people doing similar activities with live video. And that is truly how this whole thing is born. The logo that we use today came to me in a vision, and I captured it and created it that afternoon. We started our very first talk show program, which still runs today. My dear friend Reverend LZ and I, Sekou and I, we get together at 7:00 on Friday mornings for a program called Ministers Talking Bleep. And we talk about anything we want to talk about. And we talk about it from a lens, from a New Thought lens. We talk about how this philosophy, how this belief system can support any one of us in navigating the concerns of the day, whether it's a pandemic or whether it's a nation rising in protest for Black Lives Matters, whether it's all the various social issues, if you will, that we have seen, we're free to talk about those things on that program. And we have a lot of great guests that come in and share as well. Some days we're a little irreverent and off topic. Some days we're incredibly on topic, and some days we don't get to a resolution in our conversation. Some days we're left still exploring the possibilities, and again, how this philosophy can support us in moving forward in our lives and maintaining our lives, if you will, growing and expanding our lives as well.
It's, one of the things that I love about this network is, sometimes we are in that place of, I don't know if the word is irreverent, but it's controversial.
Can be.
The spirit is, I think that irreverent denotes a certain sentiment that you walk in with. We're not against anything. So we can't be irreverent if we're not against. If we're showing love, if we're practicing tolerance, love, and kindness, and that is our true intent, regardless of what we're saying, I don't believe it's irreverent. I believe that it rubs against other edges at times, but that's what we're here to do. And I think that it's important that we have, like you often say, is real conversations. There is not fluff here on this network. You're not getting spiritual bypass. Even in the mornings in the afternoon, in the evenings when we pray, it's not about, oh, everything's fine. If something major went on, we talk about it. We address it. We know that, yes, there is pain. We're seeing visibly pain, loss, suffering. And we know the higher consciousness of it that heals, that lifts what we see up and cares for right where it is.
Yep.
And that's what's important. I believe that it's not about, this show is all about finding the joy in the journey. There's a lot of crap along the way that we hit. And we have to find our way back to that inner joy in the midst of the chaos, the drama, and even grief. And we have shows that help with all of that.
Yep, exactly. You remind me of the old teaching story of the young boy and the pony. And I love the story because a young boy, it's his birthday morning, and he's been wishing all year for a pony. And he and his brother, that morning, the father comes downstairs, leads him out into the backyard to a shed that's been built in the backyard. And they open the shed, and there's a 6-foot pile of dung. And the younger boy, whose birthday it is and who's been wanting a pony, dives in and starts digging through the crap. And the older brother says, "What in the world are you doing? This has got to be a joke. Dad just gave you a pile of shit." And the kid looks and he says, "What, are you kidding me? With all of this, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere."
Yep.
And that is really, in so many ways, part of the essence of how we can approach these big issues. I talk a lot about guns and gun violence, not to scream a talking point, not to profess a political platform, not to push a specific agenda, but to help better understand what gifts we are receiving and which gifts we're ignoring, because we continue to have similar experiences, especially in the United States, of gun violence in our schools. And I have a kid in college and one in high school. And at one point, there were 3 active shooter lockdowns within a week at my son's college. How it would be irresponsible for me. I believe it would be metaphysical malpractice to not be discussing and helping and providing an outlet through which the divine comes to reconcile for all of us how we live with or without those experiences. And There's got to be a solution in there somewhere, but we're not going to find it if we don't dig in and strip away the outer layers, the false perceptions, the talking points, the blah, 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 blah of any issue that may come into our lives, any piece of life that may touch us. And not to go down too heavy of a rabbit hole on a show about joy, but if we don't face it, we're not going to find the joy that is got to be present, that is within us. It's by stripping away all this stuff that I find a more joyful experience of living, even in the midst of gun violence in our country.
I think we all have a purpose. And sometimes everyone is different and everyone has a different purpose. And I believe that yours is definitely to be out in that forefront, banging that drum of what it is you feel is important. And you have this wonderful megaphone of a network that you have created that allows many of us to, really be in a place of empowerment. And that's what we do. We are empowered to live differently. Yeah. And it's important that we're not, it's not so much like I always look to Mother Teresa's, if you have a peace rally, invite me.
Right.
I'm not going to go to an anti-war rally, but if you have a peace rally, I'll be there. Yep. And that's really the way that I look at it. If you don't talk about it, it's like it's that monster in the closet. And it'll never go away. But when you shine the light of day on it and the light of spirit on it, things can change in amazing ways because that light alone is an antiseptic.
Yes.
And we get the opportunity to do that. And each voice on every show is completely different. And I want people to know that it's uncensored, that as hosts, we bring ideas to you. And you say yes, and here we are. So it's not necessarily that it's your preconceived notion of anything. It's just whoever the host is setting forth. I mean, and everyone is New Thought. Everybody is under the umbrella of, and it is definitely attraction of the proper consciousness. But there is you do not say this and don't say that. And that's what's so wonderful too, is that there is the freedom to discuss anything. Mm-hmm. And the real stuff, when you talk about things like transgender rights and you talk about suicide prevention, and no, on a show of joy, people would think, oh, what's that about? What it's about is truth, because there are many people that are going through life on the treadmill of the news channels or hiding from them. And the truth is that until people are awake and living in their truth, now whatever that looks like for you, there's healing that has to happen. It's not having blinders on. It's being fully awake, alert, and empowered. And that's what we do. And that's what we try to do.
Yes, exactly. You bring up a great point, because some would say we could very easily say suicide is not a conversation that's appropriate for a show about joy. How could anyone find joy in a conversation around suicide? Well, I'll tell you,
it's so important.
I find joy in the fact that we can actually talk about it. When I was a kid, when I was a teenager, this wasn't something you talked about until it was too late. The only time you talked about it was that morning when you got to school and found out that somebody wasn't showing up this day. And then it was always the morbid conversation of, well, what happened and how could we have known, and we couldn't have known, and the justification for those that turned a blind eye or for those that weren't listening. And today, that stuff doesn't happen. I ask my kids every day, are you safe? And we know what that means. That doesn't mean are you protected from the elements. It means, are you in a safe space mentally, that you're confident you're not you're not having suicidal ideations. And I can ask my friends that. And things like Safe Talk. I got involved with Safe Talk probably 2008 or 9, when it was still really new, even in New Thought churches, to have these conversations around how do we support people, how do we recognize the warning signs, how do we support people, and how do we get them to a safe space until we can get them in the hands of a professional that's trained to deal with these issues and these concerns. Up until that point, I had no clue. I didn't know what I should say or what I shouldn't say. I didn't know how powerful it is to ask the direct question to somebody. Are we talking about suicide here? To be able to really say and not be afraid of what's going to happen when the question is answered. So that's something I feel like New Thought has made great strides in helping our practitioners and our members and our ministers and everyone in this movement understand that this is not a shameful thing. This is a sign of a desire for some healing in our mental health, in our mental body.
Yes.
And in our emotional body.
And sorry, that comes in a lot of forms. Mental illness comes in many different forms. And, not that suicidal idea, that's not necessarily it. There's different layers of. There's depression, there's bipolar, there's people that are living with people with these things. And it's how do I show up as love? And if we don't talk about it, it feels like it's wrong. And there's nothing wrong with all of these things. Any emotion that is coming up, it's coming up to be revealed to be healed. And we're better than a show about joy than to talk about how to find it. Because even when you're depressed, even when you're experiencing grief, it's an experience. It is not who and what you are. So when you talk about it, shine light on it and say, there is hope to find your way out of it.
Yep.
When you hear someone that's hosting a show say, I have no idea how many years denying grief. And as a result of it, I ended up with 28 tumors in my kidneys because I was trying to take care of everyone else but myself. Yep. And I thought I was joyful. I thought I was doing the right things. I didn't know how to be any different because I thought that the caretaker role was who I was, not something I was doing. So exactly. The real talk helps us to identify the difference and live in a more authentic, loving, and joy-filled way without the fear of what if someone finds out that I'm really not okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or that I'm not exactly the person you've made me out to be. I'm not. That's what I think one of our biggest fears is that somebody will find out I'm a fraud. I'm not who they think I am. I'm not all that kind of stuff. And, in all of this, I'm reminded as well that anywhere I hear the term, we don't talk about that here, that to me is the immediate green flag to start talking about what that is. Because if there's anything we're not allowed to talk about, that's what we most need to talk about. Yes, truth as the gateway to joy. I love that. So thank you.
Great comment. Thank you so much. We shine the light on shame, and healing occurs. That's what it's all about, is really coming to a place of realizing that everything, as long as we're authentic, it's all spirit showing up in different ways. Yes. And it's allowing it to come to be ourselves. Because until we are aware of it, we can't possibly heal it. And we live in a society, as I said, bigger, better, faster, more, that tells us we're consumers. Mm-hmm. We're not spiritual beings, we're consumers. So when you're living from the outside in, it's hard to get that concept. See, this is a network that reminds people we're living from the inside out, and that's where change is made.
Yep. It's, we're on this topic of shame, so I love following where spirit puts us. And And many of us, were brought up to use shame as a shield. Because if we're focused on someone else and I'm shaming someone else, then no one can really look at my shortcomings or what I perceive those to be. No one is able to judge me if I'm judging you first. And it's I mean, I was brought up in New Jersey and did a lot of, so the East Coast, it was very prevalent. There were judgments all around. You were an Italian or you were a Polak. Last name Brzezinski. I'm allowed to use that term.
My last name's Colvario, so I was the Italian.
Right. You know how it was. People would tell you a Polish joke. You'd turn around and tell it as an Italian joke to your buddies the next day.
And I'm on the East Coast. I live in Rhode Island and CSL Greater Boston. So yes, it's a very different, every area is different.
Right.
And we all have different mannerisms and things that are cordial and okay or not. You know, we have some pretty straightforward people will speak and do and act. In the Northeast, we are over-caffeinated and at times even blunt and rude. So we tend to have that authentic, what you see is what you get. And depending upon where you are, things are taken as it's okay to say these things or it's not. So it depends on where you are too. You're right.
And once I found New Thought, it really quickly became, okay, and the delineator there is, am I doing no harm? And while my buddies and I might think it's funny to tell a joke about a nationality, and then, oh yeah, but it's true, I lived with them, you know, all those things, it doesn't move us forward as a human race. So again, if we're not listening to what's going on around us, if we're denying, and that's another goalpost for me. Anywhere I see someone being shut down and told to shut up, that raises a red flag. Let's talk about the state of Montana and transgender representative Zoe Zephyr, who is right now being told to sit down and shut up, literally, by a political party that is in control of the Montana state legislature. That to me is not new. That's not how this is supposed to happen. I don't know if anybody ever remembers, there was a great commercial a while back with a few little old ladies that were, and they were talking in terms of social media. And the one woman was showing her friends her wall that had all her pictures on the wall. And one of them said, that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. Well, when a majority of elderly white guys tell a young progressive transgender elected representative to sit down and shut up, that's not how any of this is supposed to work. And again, I think we have, as New Thoughters, if you will, I believe we have a unique perspective because we study what oneness looks like. We study what living a life beyond the shame and beyond the judgments look like.
Beyond the masks.
Yeah, beyond all those masks, we look for a greater vision, a greater understanding of a vision of a world that works for all. And while it may work for the old white politicians to tell this person to sit down and shut up, it doesn't work for the progressive voice that needs to be heard and is demanding to be heard. And this is one instance. This is happening all over the place, where the emerging vision of the world, of a world that works for all, that works for everyone, is being told to sit down and shut up. No, we're the people to stand up and say, hey, we want to have a voice here.
We used to be in it. There's a lot of change happening. And one of the, I just wanted to say something it's mentioned earlier. You talked about the different, basically what you hid behind your shields. My shield was denial. My shield was, if I pretended it didn't bother me, it didn't bother me.
Right.
but it did bother me and it tinted my joy. So, whatever our shields are, when we hide behind them, it taints and limits our enthusiasm of life. It limits our relationships, because that's the thing. We don't necessarily, when we're putting that barriers because we're afraid to be hurt, because we're afraid to be seen and be authentic, we are limiting our experience of good in our life. We're limiting our abundance. We're limiting our relationships, our love, our peace. All of those things that spirit is, we're holding it in because we're holding the other stuff out. So it has to be a flow. And if we're not taught, because I was never taught any of this. I wasn't raised in New Thought. I was raised Catholic. So for me, you said the specific prayers, and that was that. You believed what they told you. And I was never that person. I went to church on Sundays, but I didn't even repeat what they said because I didn't believe half of it.
Right.
But I had to find my own way. Thankfully, we have a lot of youth that are finding their way now in a different way.
Right.
We get to be the change we wish to see in the world. And it's coming about because of networks like this and shows like this, where ministers talking, and science of mind, and more open views on spirituality and spiritual connection that speak the truth of who we really are. So, what was your first catalyst when you first said, okay, what is your first catalyst into this understanding, this new thought stuff?
The real truth is, well, again, it's always a multifaceted story. There was a really cute girl involved. Now, I'm happy to say she's my wife of 20 years.
There you go.
So, and
she's cuter than ever.
And cuter than ever, exactly. And we were looking for. I came from a spiritual tradition of God equaled the great outdoors. And to me, there was no way to get closer to God on a Sunday morning than at the top of a ski lift or a mountain or in a desert valley or at a canyon somewhere in the great outdoors. And my wife had been brought up Lutheran, and in our early dating year there, the first year, she wanted to find a tradition or something we could share. And we spent most of 2001. We spent most of the early part of 2001 visiting all kinds of communities across the Salt Lake City area and the Salt Lake Valley in Utah. And nothing resonated. And then I had pretty much given up. I was kind of like, I'm done wasting my Sundays looking for something that doesn't exist. I know where it exists. I'm going back to the mountains. And then on a Friday morning, I left to go to work. My wife had a coaching session with her personal coach, her business coach. Big shout out to Reverend Barbara, and she'll know, if she ever happens to see this, she'll know who she is. So Reverend Barbara Novak. And in that conversation, she said to Laura, hey, I understand you two are looking for a church. This is something I found recently. You might be interested, and left her with a copy of the Science of Mind textbook. Now, by the time I came home on that Friday afternoon, Laura was already off doing a catering gig for her chef business. I had basically the choice between television and this intriguing looking book that I had never seen before. And with no idea what I was getting into, I sat down and read through the first 4 sections and a bit more. And I read probably every paragraph 3 or 4 times, because I'd get 5 paragraphs down and I'd be like, wait a minute, and have to turn back 3 pages and read it again. Oh, yeah. And by the time she came home, I was pretty much in tears.
Wow.
And she's like, oh, yeah, it's a church. This is a church? Let's go. And we did. This is early August of 2000. We went to a service. We were wowed by the service. And actually, we're told, don't go to the first service. That's the assistant minister. She's nice. She's good. But you really want to see the second service. That's the senior guy. That's the main guy. But we didn't listen. We went to the first service. And
why am I not surprised?
And she was so good that we were like, if we're supposed, no. Ran down the street, grabbed some breakfast, came back for second service. So my first Sunday was a double dipper, 2 services back to back. And within a week.
All right, which one was better, the first or the second?
Donald was definitely a better speaker at that time, yes. So second service, yes, senior minister.
Okay, just thinking I'd ask.
And Reverend Jan would agree with us on that. That's who the assistant was at the time, Reverend Jan Ewing. And I'll have to knock on her door and make sure she sees this sometime too. But so long story short, I immediately signed up, pretty much immediately, within a few weeks, signed up for a foundations class. Laura and I were building a restaurant, preparing to launch a restaurant at that point. She's the chef. And I asked her, do you want to take this with me? And her response was like, no, I've got a restaurant to open. What are you talking about? Okay. She said, why do you want to take the class? I said, real easily, if this is a cult, I'm going to figure that out in this class and we're going to get the hell out of here. But if this isn't, and this is real, we probably have found the home we're looking for as a spiritual community. Now, I'm sure you can all deduce what came next. What came next was 9/11. And
were you in the middle of foundations at the time?
Second week.
You know, Spirit works in amazing ways, because what a better, like, it really helps. And that's one of the assignments.
Right.
It's to actually find in foundations. One of the assignments is actually to look at what's going on in the news.
Yep. And we weren't there yet, but again, Reverend Donald Graves did such an incredibly masterful job of holding these 30 people who walked into that room that night in various stages of disbelief, disrepair, anger, all, you name it. It was in that room that night. There were people that were ready to go sign up and grab guns. There were people that didn't know what to do, and the whole gamut. And he did such a masterful job of holding all of us in the moment, but also calling us to a vision of what can be, and an understanding that it may take us a dozen years or more. It may take us a decade to fully understand where the pony is in that event, where the good would be, what good must be coming from this, even though in the moment it looks horrendous. And I tell you, I can't remember how many times I relied and remembered back to that experience in February, March, April, May of 2020, not quite 20 years later, when we were launching this ministry and facing a similar experience, but on a global scale.
Yeah. So I'm not, I don't want to cut you off, but I need to do that, because we have some points that I want to make before, because time flies. It absolutely does.
Give a minister a microphone, dear one. You know the story.
Well, I want to put a shout out, because we at CSL Greater Boston are starting a foundations class, which was the life-changing class for me, as well as, and it's actually going to be, it's going to be based in Barbados, of all places. So CSL Greater Boston is teaming up with people in Barbados to begin a foundations class. Nice. And it's going to be on Saturday afternoons. So I am encouraging people, if you're interested in a foundations class, which is the beginning, to me, life-changing class for both of us, it was. Yes. Please feel free to email me and I can get you more information about that. It's going to be starting the first week of I believe it's the first Saturday of May. So coming up in just a week or two.
Nice.
So, we've got some amazing things happening. So I want to make sure we get to a couple of announcements.
Yes.
And we always have so much. The network is in the midst of some incredible things. There's some great changes coming, and I'm not gonna spoil any of those. But I want to make two announcements before we're gonna play a promo, because this is very exciting. So this weekend, I'm gonna play a promo, and then you're gonna talk about it.
Absolutely.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ricky Byers, and I want you to know that I'm coming to Albuquerque, New Mexico for a concert on April 29th, and it's going to be off the chain. So invite your in-laws, your outlaws, invite everybody. Have everybody come through.
So this is incredible. This is this weekend. Please tell us a little bit. I know you're actually leaving soon and on your way there. So tell us about it.
Absolutely. Yes. New Thought Media Network was born from the musical experience of New Thought. And I had a great blessing. Again, when I first found this philosophy in Salt Lake City, Utah, the music director at the Salt Lake Center for Spiritual Living, Rick Charette, still there, still doing a great job. Big, huge shout out to him and that community. He is diehard on the music scene, and he did a great job of bringing in guest artists from around the country and around the local area. And I've always been a music guy. I can't hold a tune to save anything, but I love having a good time and play my hippie drums in the parking lot once in a while. But ultimately, the way that we can communicate this message through music is incredibly powerful, and it's incredibly transformative. And so music has been as much a part of this ministry as anything else. This weekend, our dear friends, Reverend Gil Olmsted and his beloved Robin Rice, who also have a show here on the network. That's
a
called
wonderful show.
Rockin' the Love. It happens on Wednesday afternoons. They're hosting a concert with Ricky Byers at the center, the Rio Grande Center for Spiritual Living in Albuquerque, New Mexico. When they started setting it up, Gil called me and he said, "Hey, how do we make this work better, more, and get this into more people's ears and help more people see this?" So yes, I'll be traveling tomorrow down to Albuquerque. We're taking our mobile broadcast studio with us, and we're going to broadcast that program Saturday afternoon. It's at 4:00. I forgot to pull up the link, but I will find that in a moment here for you, where you can register if you want to register for it to watch the live stream. You'll also find that on our New Thought Media Network Facebook page, on our website, ntmedia.org, and look around. You'll find that link, or get in touch with me directly, or Gina, we can get you that link to register. But it's going to be a great afternoon, evening of wonderful music with Ricky Byers. And I mean,
she's incredible.
Other than like maybe Karen Drucker, Ricky is the queen of New Thought music from my perspective. The two of them are both prolific songwriters, singers, and both do amazing work in their live performances. So I'm really honored to be the guy in the back of the room who just turns on the cameras and lets it roll for that coming Sunday. I will say I am going to speak on behalf of the network at the Rio Grande at their Sunday service this week as well. So if you'd like, tune into their Sunday service. If you'd like to hear a full-length talk from me, I'd be honored to have you join us for that as well.
Wonderful. And the other thing, this is different. This is about the camp. So we're going to show this promo, and then you can tell us about this one.
Happy birthday, Camp Cedar Ridge. We invite you to come camp and celebrate our first year while in sacred service. May 19th through the 21st, we'll be restoring our beloved meditation labyrinth. Come camp with us for the weekend, and all we'll ask you to cover are the meals. Vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free options are available. That's the weekend of Friday, May 19th to Sunday, May 21st. You can bring your own tent or act fast and register for one of our glamping tents or bunkhouse beds while supplies last. We do have limited indoor accommodations for an additional fee. Find more details and registration at campcedarridgeor.org.
All right. Real quick, I did put the link in the chat box for anybody that's watching on Facebook and YouTube. If it doesn't happen to come through to the platform that you're on, again, just let us know and we'll get you that direct link. And there it is. Gina's got it up on the screen for us as well. So let's talk about Camp Cedar Ridge. Camp Cedar Ridge is owned by the Centers for Spiritual Living. However, it is operated and managed by an independent 501c3 nonprofit that is designed to bring this camp, which for the longest time has been a basketball camp, a youth basketball camp, but to transform Camp Cedar Ridge from a sports-based youth camp into a spiritual retreat and spiritual camp, if you will. The Center for Spiritual Living teen program is utilizing the campgrounds for their annual summer retreat. And back in 2004, our teens created a camp there as well. And at that time, they built a labyrinth. Literally went down to the river and dug up the rocks and pulled the rocks off the riverbed and transported them across the field to the location where they are. Well, as it would be, the camp was not under our organization's control, and they didn't find as much use in the labyrinth. Our teens weren't able to continue to go there for a number of different reasons, and the labyrinth was left to be overgrown. About a year or so, well, it'll be a year in May here. Just a year ago, the Centers for Spiritual Living purchased the camp, and we're now having its first birthday party. And this is going to be a really fun event because, again, we'll be live streaming portions of the event and various experiences from the event across that entire weekend. It's May 19th through the 21st. During that weekend, we're going to rebuild the labyrinth. Now, I want everybody to know this is not a CSL specific event, and it's not limited, which means it's not limited to only Centers for Spiritual Living people. There are people coming from all kinds of communities. There are people coming from other organizations that regularly utilize this camp that are outside of our spiritual philosophy, but a part of the community that is building itself up around the new vision for Camp Cedar Ridge. It's going to be a great opportunity. I'm going to be there. My kids are going to be there. Other people from the network, we're working on who we can get there to be with us. You can learn a whole lot more at their website, Camp Cedar, and that went across. That was in the video. I'll get that link for you too. But this is one of the ways I see where, as a spiritual organization, we can put our money where our mouth is. We can put our hands where our heart is. We can get out in the world and demonstrate the willingness to do the work and the heavy lifting. Let's be real. We're going to build a labyrinth out of rocks. I got like half a ton ready to go already. And we're going to put the principles to practice in creating a sacred space on what is now officially our holy ground.
It's a wonderful opportunity to make a mark and be there at the beginning. So for anyone that's available to be in Oregon, because that's the thing, it's, it's depending on where you are in the country and your ability to get there, and whether you like camping or glamping, that's another thing. So whatever, if this is something that calls to you, people can reach out to you. And how do they find you?
Yes. Best thing to do in any case is send us an email, info@ntmedia.org. We tried to make that as simple as we could. Info, INFO, at NT for New Thought, ntmedia.org. That'll get to me or to the right people, and we'll make sure we get you more information about it. or do a quick search for Camp Cedar Ridge in Vernonia, Oregon, and they'll come up, and there's information on their direct website as well. And let me make sure I have the right website for you on that one.
So info@ntmedia.org can get you the information to Reverend Robert, or anything for this weekend for Ricky Byers, or if they want to reach you about the camp, anything at all. So send an email. We'll get back to you. Absolutely. And, it's a wonderful thing to have you here. And I know there's a lot going on in the network, so we're going to invite you back. That was going to be most of the conversation today, is some of the changes that we're going, and all the good stuff that's coming up. And you know what? Of course, it's the end of the hour. So we're just going to let people tune in for more. Thank you for being here with us. And thank you for being that visionary that is holding that, because every time, just for those of you that don't know Rev Robert too well, he is someone that every time we meet, every month we have a meeting for, especially the prayer team. And every month we never know what's coming. There's always the newest thing, the newest platforms, the newest everything. And, knowing that it is evolving at record pace. And thank you, Jay, for being here. And thank you, each one, for your comments. It is so appreciated. This network wouldn't be here without everyone that does for it. And thank you for allowing us to speak freely and hold to the truth, no matter what, and be that voice. And thank you for your voice in that as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. So it's great being here with you.
It's been fun. Is there anything specific, anything that you want to leave as parting words?
Oh, I should have this down pat, but there's something in it that just says, there is no greater feeling in life than watching the joy that is within yourself radiate out and inspire others. Be the joy that you are, so that others have that same permission. And together we really are creating a world that works for all.
Absolutely. And that's why I love this background, because to me, that's what it is. It is that light that we each have, sharing it with each other, radiating that light out to the world. And you definitely do that. And it is appreciated. So thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Rev Robert, for being my guest here. And remember that regardless of what the path looks like right now in this moment, the joy is within you and always attainable. And that, the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. So until next week, and, actually not even every day, there's every day, there's all kinds of stuff. So I encourage people to go to, ntmedia.org and go to check out what's on there, because all the back shows are on there as well. And remember that you can ask any questions you need to of Rev Robert at info@ntmedia.org. And you can reach me, for any questions that you may have about the Foundations class or the show or anything at all. But we thank you for being here. We thank you for being part of this virtual community. We love you and wishing you light, love, and a wonderful week. Blessings. Namaste.
Bye now.